16 teams entered the league with championship aspirations, but only one can claim the crown. It's the final episode of Wonder Room in Season 6. It is time to find out who reigns supreme as your NWBA champions. But first, a lot of fun stuff to cover. It's the end of season awards. Who would be crowned best of the best by the people over the course of Season 6? A lot of great, funny, and amazing moments happened this season, but who would walk away as the best moment, and who would end up being featured in the best match of the season? MVP winners, new accolades, and a finals to remember. The final episode of Wonder Room starts now. Wonder Room is brought to you in part by Booze Mobile and by Kurtz's Chicken. And now for your host, King Vasser. Hello everybody, and welcome to the final episode of Wonder Room for Season 6. The season has long since concluded. We are wrapping up things over on our end. However, despite the fact that there's only one set to cover today, that being the championship, we actually have a lot to go over, because there are a lot of end of season awards to talk about. So today is going to be a fun episode as we wrap up Season 6, and we will start with the award winners. We start with the Berserk Gene Award, which goes to the Mon in each respective league with the highest number of KOs. For the Ruby League, it's Iron Crown, whose 61 KOs were not only number 1 in the league this season, but second all-time in Gen 9 for the NWBA. Over in the Sapphire League, Thunderous T's 48 KOs were second over the entire league and 7th all-time in Gen 9. The Secret Sword Award goes to the Mon with the highest KOs per game over the season. Iron Crown also snapped that for the Ruby League, second in the entire league and second all-time in Gen 9, surpassed only by Reggie Drago, who wins the award for the Sapphire League. Just a hair more than Iron Crown, still rounds out to 2.0 KOs per game. First in the league, first all-time in Gen 9, so that is a new record for Reggie Drago. The Helping Hand Award goes to the Mon with the most assists in the league. And for the Ruby League, Hip Howdon's 39 assists were second all-time and most in the league this season. Over in the Sapphire League, Toxapex's 26, a bit lower on the list, just 5th in the league, but still a very good number. Good enough for 10th all-time in Gen 9. And then we have the coveted 20 KOs, 20 assists club, better known as the 2020 Club. 7 Mons made it this time around, meaning that in addition to the 6 Mons in the previous season, we now have already seen 13 Mons in Gen 9 make it to this club. A far higher pace than we've seen in the NWBA over the first 4 seasons, which of course were played in Gen 8. The club this season includes Iron Treads, Wheezing G of Turnback, a bit of a surprise there, Samurott H, and Claude Zyre of Heart Home, meaning that this is the first time in NWBA history that 2 mods on the same faction have made it to the 2020 club in the same season. The aforementioned Hip Howdon, Glamora of Snowpoint, meaning that Glamora has now done it in back-to-back seasons, an extremely impressive feat. And again, a bit of a surprise, Toxapex of Dream Yard. So, a very prestigious club, but now that we are seeing less hazard control over the course of the league, we are starting to see Mons rack up more points, both in KOs and assists, than we've seen before, and as such, the 2020 club has more members in it now than it's ever had in any previous season. And for the first time in league history, we get to unveil a brand new accolade developed straight from Vasser's brain. The all NWBA teams. It functions very similarly to how other sports leagues do it. The NFL has the Pro Bowl, but also has the All Pro team. The NBA has the All-Star team, but also has the All NBA team. As such, the NWBA has adopted a similar format. The fans and the faction owners get to vote in which ones make it to the All-Star game, but Vasser himself is able to come up with the All NWBA team, the best of the best for each tier of usage in the league. So 2 per tier, OU, UU, RU, NU, PU, as well as 2 EXs will result in 12 mons per team. There is a first team and a second team. And this season's first team mons include Iron Treads, Samurott H, Great Tusk, Iron Crown, Sinistra, Hippowdon, Thunderous T, Regidrago, Lucario, Mew, Hoopa, and Shaman. Now, we have listed all the stats for every mon that's made the all NWBA teams, but if we were to sit here and try to rattle them off, it would take us well over an hour to get it done. So instead, we figured it's best to highlight certain ones and to talk about the different categories that these mons represent and how there are many different ways to skin a cat, and there are many different ways to make it to the all NWBA team. Terra obviously is a big reason why mons are able to succeed, to be able to change your type. We could go on and on about how useful that is. Instead, let's talk about how half of the all NWBA first team is a Terra captain. Iron Crown, Thunderous T, Regidrago, Lucario, Mew, and Shaman were all Terra captains this season. Some of those mons being MVP finalists. There are mons that are good enough that even when they get banned often, they're still able to succeed. Samurott H, Great Tusk, Iron Crown, Regidrago. 2020 Club members often have a good shot at making it in. Iron Tread, Samurott H, and Hippowdon have all been able to do that. Even if you don't fit into any of those categories, you can still be a very dangerous threat. Sinistra didn't have Terra, didn't matter. It was very hard to deal with. 75 points, 30 plus usage rate. You rarely ever see a mon get that high in the usage rate. That's why that was an MVP finalist. Even Hoopa, which only saw 20 games and wasn't that high in the usage rate for turn back, still finished with 46 points, which was the most among all mons in PU. So regardless of how you get there, mons that make it to the all NWBA team, especially the first team, certainly deserved to make it there at all. Introducing the all NWBA second team, we decided to go with 2 teams closer to the NFL style rather than the 3 executed by the NBA, because it gets to a point where there are more mons on the all NWBA teams than there are on the all-star rosters, and that seems a little silly. The roster for the second team is as follows: Kyurem, Gargasult, Zapdos, Sandy Shocks, Greninja, Volcanion, Salamence, Fraligator, Infernape, Torterra, Snorlax, and Wochen. Now, when you look at the second team stats, you're probably nowhere near as blown away. I mean, that makes sense. On the second team, for a reason, you're not going to see the same gaudy stats like you see among the mons in the first team, the true MVP candidates of the league. That does not mean that you are not going to see some very impressive stats here, and you're going to see a lot of the same trends in patterns. 6 more Terra captains ended up making it to the second team, those being Gargasult, Salamence, Infernape, Torterra, Snorlax, and Wochen. Special mention to Wochen, who is really the first mon in NWBA history over the entire history of the league who has ever truly been recognized for its defensive efforts. We've seen other mons in the past get some notoriety for how good they are defensively, but no mon has ever done it like Wochen, who now has an all-star mention and an all NWBA appearance to its name. You'll see some other offensive threats: Zapdos, Greninja, Fraligator, Sandy Shocks, Volcanion. Volcanion in particular having an astounding 35.4 usage rate. We've almost never seen a mon carry a team on its back like that mon has. And you have 2 very interesting cases in Kyurem and Gargasult, who were banned for half the season, 11 bans apiece, and yet were still so good offensively for their teams that they still ended up making it to the all NWBA second team. All in all, every team outside of Lava Ridge and Sicily were represented at least once on the all NWBA teams. Blackthorn, Fuchsia City, Snowbell City, and Pursuit all saw 2 Mons, and Snowpoint, Heart Home, and Legacy all tied with 3 Mons apiece, which led the league. Moving on to the end of season ballot awards, the awards that were voted on by the coaches, GM, and staff of the NWBA in season 6. The Ruby League MVP unsurprisingly goes to Iron Crown. 61 KOs and 106 points were both good for number 1 in the entire league, and its 3.5 points per game and 2.0 KOs per game were second in the league only to Reggie Drago. This Mon broke all types of records all season. Its historically dominant week 1, where it put together 45 points, the most in a single week in NWBA history. It became the first Mon in NWBA history to get all 12 KOs in a 2-0 set in league history. It's one of the 4 Mons all time to win Pokemon of the Week multiple times in a single season. What more can you say other than this might be the single most impressive season in NWBA history, at least in Gen 9? It's certainly up for debate, but one thing is for sure, Iron Crown certainly earned its MVP award in Season 6. As for the Sapphire League MVP, it's that familiar face yet again, now winning its 3rd career MVP, which is tied for the most all-time in NWBA history with Haxorus. It's Reggie Drago of the Snowbell City Savants. 45 KOs was good for 3rd in the Sapphire League, but its 82 points were 2nd in the entire league behind only Iron Crown. And its 3.7 points per game and 2.0 KOs per game were not only 1st in the league, but both 1st all time in the 2 seasons that we have ran Gen 9 in the NWBA. Reggie Drago once again decided in the back half of the season that it wanted to win MVP, and did just that. It won a Pokemon of the Week in the back half of the season, and there isn't really much to say. In 2 seasons in Gen 9, this thing as a Terra Captain has absolutely dominated the field, and as a result, we are seeing the resume of perhaps the greatest Mon in league history continue to grow with another absolutely dominant season. As for the end of season superlatives, best general manager went to Nico, GM of Kiram's Legacy. Made total sense. 20-2 is a really difficult record to come by. Only 5 teams in the history of the entire NWBA have managed to get 20 wins in a season. And best general manager typically goes to the GM that puts together the best record during the course of the regular season, so no surprise that goes to Nico. Congratulations to him. Best coach, far more contested than it's ever been in NWBA history. Coming into this season, Dom had won the award 3 seasons in a row, but we have a new winner this time around, Styles X2, coach of Critical and the Fuchsia City Scythers. Fuchsia City finished 12-10 on the season, but were 12-2 before Critical had to DQ for the rest of the regular season. And a lot of that is due to Styles' ability to team build and counter what people were trying to bring against Critical's double weathered team. So hats off to Styles for being able to break one of the most ironclad streaks in NWB history by becoming the best coach of season 6. And for best nickname, that award goes to Goongar the Gengar of Keg and the Cascarafa Cyndaquils. This was a very tight race. Cha Rule the Sinistra of Dreamyard was very close right out the gate. It looked like the favorite, but Goongar appealed more to the masses and as such became the best nickname for season 6. Moment of the season goes to the Okie Dokie game in week 2 on versus Seeker. Just in case you forgot or haven't seen it before, we'll let the clip take care of itself.
Okie Dokie? Yeah.
Bulking up.
Sack Diddle just to
yo,
go
bulk up again. What the fuck is he talking about?
We talking crazy right now. Alex, turn the heat up.
That shit is dual screens, Wish Thunder Wave.
Alex,
bulking up on this thing.
Alex, please turn the heat up.
Turn a nigga into a convertible. Alex, hit something.
Alex, please turn the fucking heat up.
Push this little nigga top back. Holy fuck.
Hey, you remember that item, right?
Yo.
Yeah, remember the item, right?
No way!
Nice fucking chest, idiot.
That shit did 8 million.
Toronto, stand the fuck up.
That shit did a great billion, bro.
Give me some more. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you.
Earthquake.
Yo.
Earthquake
gonna help
just
you.
Yo, Earthquake just did a fuck thousand, bro. Oh my god.
Nigga, come here.
Oh, that bad. Thank you. And you're gonna go under this idiot.
Holy shit, bro.
It's never been.
Nigga.
It's Oki. It's over. It's Oki.
It's Oki's over, nigga. It's Oki's over. Talk check. Pads. Holy shit. Real TV is back.
Real Toronto TV is back.
Match of the season was actually tied. The aforementioned Okie Dokie game between Hardhome and Kasparov in Week 2 was one of the two matches that won the award, but the other goes to Undella and Kasparov's rematch in Week 5. We saw those crazy sets being built between the Necrozma, the Entei, some really good plays from both teams, vying for a playoff spot. Down to the wire gameplay. There's not much more you can ask for. The stakes were high, the plays were good, and a well-deserving winner of match of the season. And now with all that covered, we move on to the championship set. Kyurem's Legacy coming in 20-2, the 1 seed in the Ruby League. Kasparov Cyndaquils 9-13, the 5 seed in the Sapphire League. These two teams could not have had much of a more different regular season, but none of that matters. All you need to do is get into the postseason, and when these two teams got there, all they did was win by any means necessary getting to this point. Who would emerge as the champion? Would Nico be able to finish the book on perhaps the most dominant season in NWBA history, or would Keg's Cinderella run of a lifetime conclude with the greatest upset win in the history of this entire league? So here we go, Legacy and Kasparov for the NWBA Championship, and right out of the gate, both teams come out swinging. We see a Terra fighting from Lucario, something we haven't seen all season, and God does not reward Nico with that decision. He misses a crucial meter match right out the gate, and Lucario is the first mon down in the championship set. Now, the important part about a set like this, you're going to have to learn what these mons are doing. We see a mixed Hoopa come out and able to pick up the KO on Rotom thanks to Knockoff and Psychic Noise. Rillaboom comes out and gets burned on the Volcarona, so this thing is pretty much already useless. It's 5-4 pretty early on in Nico's favor. Goodra's out here pressing acid sprays. Of course, Hippo's going to set up rocks. It's revealed that the Hoopa is in fact AV, but the Draco meter from Goodra not able to pick up the KO, so Hoopa's going to get a lot off of this knockoff before it goes down to a Goodra knockoff. So in comes Overquill. You're going to have to guess what this thing is, but Nico goes for a spike early. Makes a lot of sense. He wants to hazard stack, knowing that Keg has limited control. Excadrill comes in as the Overquill reveals that it's Swords Dance on top of hazards, but Nico wisely gets out of dodge, knowing that Excadrill can blow it up with a ground move. So Rillaboom has to come back in, knowing that this thing is going to have to take a hit because it can't really do much else, and the Poltergeist from the Decidueye is going to do a lot of damage. Nico going back into Overquill to take the knock. It does only 4%, so Overquill essentially heals from that attack, gets off a second layer of spikes. So he's really putting the pressure on Keg in this game one, knowing that the only spinner on this team is Excadrill. Keg, knowing that the Decidueye is going to come and try to block the spin, goes for an Iron Head, but then has to sack Goodra because he knows he can't really do anything to Decidueye without getting a flinch. So in comes Gengar to get the KO, but Nico wisely packs Shadow Sneak to take Gengar out. So Nico, with a really good early advantage in this game one, unfortunately misses the Poltergeist on the Excadrill, so it's got to get some chip before it goes down to an Iron Head. And it's starting to look like this Excadrill is Scarf, but we don't know for certain. Keg has to sack Rillaboom to the Volcarona, but Nico doubles into Hippowdon, and Diancie isn't going to be able to do much of this thing, and so Nico's going to be able to use Whirlwind and shuffle Excadrill and Diancie out, Keg's not going to get a flinch on Hippo, and it's only a matter of time before Keg forfeits and Nico takes the first game of the set. You see that Diancie Draining Kiss not going to be able to do much anything to Hippo either. So it's a good first game for Nico. On to game 2, we trade rocks out the gate. Nico goes back to shuffling around with the Whirlwind, causing a lot of problems, reveals that he also has high horsepower, expecting Rillaboom terrain, does a lot to Diancie, but Draining Kiss is going to get a lot back, so Nico's going to have to shuffle this thing out too. And in comes Gengar, and you know Hippowdon is not going to be able to take a Shadow Ball from this thing. Okay, goes for the Terra, gets 43 on Hoopa, but doesn't get the roll, so Hoopa's going to get the KO back with the knockoff. Fortunately gets disabled, revealing that the Gengar is specs on that knock, by the way. So Nico decides to save it as a sack for later. Keg reads the Decidueye, but it's packing a Cold Berry, so the Throat Chop doesn't do much. And then Nico reveals that the Decidueye has Defog, so Hoopa is going to be able to come back out, gets a big knockoff on Gudra before it goes down to a knock. And so Nico, once again, using this information to his advantage. Now he goes for the setup sweep with Volcarona, reveals that it's sub Volcarona, something we haven't seen all season. Goes for a Quiver Dance, goes for a Giga Drain on Diancie, but doesn't get the KO. So Diancie's going to be able to pop the sub before it goes down to a Fiery Dance. So Nico's think he has a chance to win right now, and the Extra is in fact Scarf. It's packing Rock Slide, gets rid of Volcarona, and so the momentum swings right back in Keg's favor, but a big crit from the Lucario swings it back into Nico's. So Keg's going to have to sack the Gudra. It goes down to a CC. In comes Shaman to get off a Seed Flare. Doesn't do much of the overcoat, but it gets the Spadef drop, so an Earth Power is going to send this thing packing and even the score up. Nico's got a Terra Fighting to stop Earth Power from blowing it up. Gets off a big CC, does a lot of damage. Goes into Hippo as Keg misses the Seed Flare, but it doesn't matter because Hippo can't stay in on another one. It does and gets blown up as a result. Fortunately for Nico, the next Seed Flare misses, so Shaman's gonna go down. But with a Scarf Excadrill and a weakened Decidueye and Lucario, a few Iron Heads, thanks to a flinch, is gonna give Keg the second game in the set and tie it up at 1-1. So on the game 3, the leads are Volk and Rotom Wash, and Nico decides, nah, I'm going to win now. Sets up a sub on the T-Wave, and decides he's gonna play the game. Surely, with 4 opportunities to sub, Hydro Pump is going to miss once and give him an opportunity to get the +2, right? But it doesn't happen. Rotom lands all the Hydro Pumps. Nico cuts his losses, goes for a Giga Drain, doesn't get the KO, but then Keg Volt Switch is out, and for whatever reason, doesn't go into Excadrill. Terra Gengar is not going to be able to live anything, so he goes down to a Fiery Dance, so Keg essentially sacks Gengar for absolutely nothing, giving Nico an early lead in a pivotal game 3. Hippo sets up more rocks before going into the AV Hoopa. C4 misses again. Really unfortunate now for Keg. Things are starting to spiral a little bit. Hoopa's going to be able to get a knock. In comes Jirachi, who is the swap for Overquill between games 2 and 3. And it's a subset of Sweeper as well. Keg gets off the high horsepower, but the Jirachi reveals that it's Iron Defense. And then the weakness policy, something that's given Nico in particular a lot of success with this Jirachi set. Sub again. Shaman pops with an Earth Power, but it's going to go down to a Stored Power. In comes Gudra, who's going to be able to live because it's also AV. But the Draco Meteor's not going to be able to KO back. Fortunately for Keg, the Stored Power does not get rid of Gudra, so he's able to take out Jirachi, but he knows he's going to have to sack this thing at some point, so he goes ahead and sacks it right then and there to the Volcarona. In comes Excadrill, but Keg is already down in Mons. Rocks are up. Hippo's going to be able to eat a high horsepower easily from Excadrill, slack off, get all that HP back, and start the shuffling again. Diancie, we already know this thing can't touch Hippo well. Hippo's going to be able to slack off and get up to full, and it's looking really, really dire for Keg. High horsepower comes out from the Hippo, does another 47% to Diancie, so another one is going to KO. He knows he can't bring in Rotom because it's too low. It's going to die to the rocks. Sure enough, you see it the next turn, and just Excadrill left. That's going to be game 3 for Nico. So now championship point for the Ruby League champion. Same leads as game 3. Nico decides he's going to try to play this game again. Surely the luck will be in his favor this time. But as you can clearly see, It really isn't. Rotom once again hits all of its Hydro Pumps. Volcarona right again back down to 1 HP. Goes for the Giga Drain. But Keg gets a little bit too greedy. Goes for a Hydro Pump instead of a Volt Switch. So now Volcarona is alive. Goes for another sub. Able to get off a Quiver Dance. Fortunately, Goodra does have Scald. And because this thing is AV, Volcarona is going to have to leave again. So Keg this time able to mitigate the damage. But now he's going to have to go up against the other substitute line. Gengar terrors the Shadow Ball to be able to pop Jirachi. Keg goes for the switch knowing that Nico's going to get Jirachi out of there. And both teams do a little bit more switching. Nico tries to Amnesia again, but the Shadow Ball does in fact take it out. So now, Keg up 6-5. Goodra comes in, has to leave. Diancie gets knocked. Teams trade rocks. Hoopa comes back in turn 18, takes a Seed Flare from Shaman. So back comes Diancie. And the Hoopa reveals it has Gunk Shot. Nico goes for a knock, expecting Keg to switch. Keg goes for a Draining Kiss, but it's not going to be able to live the second Gunk Shot, so it goes down. Gengar comes in, Shadow Balls, gets a huge crit, so Hoopa is able to go down. So Keg once again in the driver's seat. The Shadow Ball does a lot to Lucario, but the Meteor Mash lands this time, and the attack raise for good measure. Bullet Punch takes out Gengar, so Extra's going to have to come in, knowing that this thing is Scarf. Goes for another Throat Chop, trying to catch Decidueye, knowing that it doesn't really have a good way of hitting that thing at all, but Hippo can eat it just as easily. Shuffles out, Shaman comes in, misses another crucial Seed Flare, but Keg reveals that he has Air Slash on the Shaman. Only takes 37 from Poltergeist, revealing the Sash, which is really interesting. Didn't really come into play during the set, but what did come into play is Shaman's HP pool, lives the Shadow Sneak, and gets rid of the Terra Fairy Decidueye. Nico has to come in and Revenge KO with the E-Speed on Lucario, but again, Mons are severely weakened. X-Drill is Scarf. High Horsepower does unfortunately land a burn thanks to Volcarona's Flame Body, but Hippo doesn't have a great way of dealing with this, and it's only a matter of time before a Mom with a Water move comes in on Hippo. Goodra lands a Scald, it gets a burn, so now Hippo is completely useless. Lucario can only come in once on rocks and will die to any other hit. Keg wisely gets off an Acid Spray to lower Hippo's Spadef, knowing that this thing is already on a timer. Decides to go for some Iron Head flinches. Nico, all he can do is shuffle around. Goodra comes back in. Goes for a Scald, does a massive amount of damage, doesn't get the KO, but at this point it doesn't matter. Hippo super low, Lucario super low, and Keg has enough HP on everything left. Rotom lands the Hydro Pump, Lucario comes in, it's going to get the KO on Rotom, but it doesn't matter. The faster Excadrill is going to be able to come in, easily live Lucario's Bullet Punch or Extreme Speed, gets off the Iron Head, and we are going to the final game of the NWBA Finals. Lucario immediately Terra Fightings, gets off a big CC on Rotom. Keg wisely goes for the T-Wave, so Lucario is now parried. Gets off a Pain Split to get some good damage in. Lucario is paralyzed. And now we play the Pokemon game, where all the hacks come through. Lucario's parried, Rotom's missing Hydro Pumps, so Lucario's still able to do off some good damage on this Rotom before it leaves. Keg finally gets out of dodge with the Volt Switch, gets Gengar in, doubles into Goodra, goes for a Scald on Lucario coming in, and then Draco's to get that out the paint, so Keg has the early lead in Game 5. In comes Keldeo, who was the swap for Jirachi, and it's yet another setup sweeper. This time, the Calm Mind variant, Keg going for Acid Sprays to keep Keldeo low, but interesting decision, turn 11, it Terra Fairies to block the Secret Sword, but goes for another Acid Spray instead of trying to Draco and get Keldeo out of the paint. So it doesn't live another Secret Sword, has to bring in Gengar, and now Keldeo's going to be able to get out of dodge for free. But Keg's luck turns positive, gets the poison on the Sludge Wave, which is huge. Hoopa's longevity goes down tremendously. Gets off a knock and a Psychic Noise on the Diancie. Keg wisely going for rocks, expecting Psychic Noise so that he doesn't go for Draining Kiss. Gets the KO. Keldeo comes back in and is able to revenge KO Diancie with the Surf. But in comes Shaman. Goes for an Air Slash wisely instead of a Seed Flare. Has to take the Future Sight, so he has to leave. Rotom comes in, takes a Fiery Dance from Volcarona, and Nico's gonna try to play the game again with the Hydro Pumps instead of just going for the KO or another Quiver Dance. Able to KO Rotom here, but the Gengar is gonna be able to outspeed, gets the KO on Volcarona, so now it's 3-3 in the final game. Shaman takes a High Horsepower and it can't take a second, But Craig reveals that the fourth move is Synthesis. Shaman is able to get healthy. We've seen that it's going to be able to live Poltergeist very easily. Takes advantage of the Decidueye not being strong enough to do any meaningful damage. Gets all the way up to 52% before taking the Decidueye out with an Air Slash. Keldeo comes in, has to go for a Calm Mind. Seed Flare does in fact land, does a lot of damage to Keldeo, doesn't get the KO, but all it needs to do is keep it low for Excadrill or Gengar to come in and clean up. In comes the Excadrill. Vacuum Wave doesn't do enough. 81 is a lot, but Excadrill gets the KO with high horsepower. Hipple's going to live high horsepower and KO back, but we know the Gengar is faster. And Keg reveals the final secret, the Energy Ball, to get the win. And so Cascarafa is your Season 6 NWBA champion. Excadrill 7 KO, 12-point performance, lands at the finals MVP. Big performances from Gengar and Shaman as well. And even though Nico put up a valiant fight, Hippo, Lucario, Volcarona all put up great numbers, it's the Cinderella story that remains on top to close out Season 6. Congratulations once again to Keg, Tux, and Cascarafa, your NWBA champions. And it's only right that the Season 6 champions get a little bit of a celebration. Once again, congratulations to Keg, GM of the Cascarafa Syndicals, as well as his coach Tux. It cannot be understated how much of a Cinderella story this was. Keg famously, or rather infamously, wasn't even able to win 5 best of 3s with Dom's Stream Key on the line last season. Much better performance this time around. 9-13, still a losing record, but all you need to do is get into the playoffs and make something happen, and that's exactly what Keg did. Did it without a single Gen 9 Mon on the roster, even more spectacularly. So once again, congratulations to Keg, your Season 6 and newest NWBA champion. Alright everybody, well, it's been a fun journey this spring, but that is going to conclude today's episode of Wonder Room, and thus finally end Season 6 for good. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for the support over the entire season. I've been your host, King Vasser, and fret not, Season 7 is just around the corner, so we will see each other sometime during the summer. So long for now, and take care.